Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Thursday to everybody. Yes, I am back in the house. Carl, I was on a little bit of not a necessarily vacay, a working vacay. Was in the sunny state of Dallas, continually to send out my thoughts with those people out there. Had a beautiful time. Now I am back on the grind, and Real Talk is back in the house. Real Talk with Carl and Charlene. We have another great episode today with another fabulous guest. And we're just going to bring the real talk to you on this Thursday morning. So I'll get the housekeeping stuff out the way. All of you guys that are tuning in, please let me know if you're tuning in from hashtag live or hashtag replay. For those who are going to see us later on today, drop in where you're tuning in from. This is a global show. We are a global known talk show. That's right. I said it here. We've had guests from all over the world on this show, but we want to find out where you're tuning in from, and also join in the conversation. Put your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Let us know what you're feeling and what questions that you may have for our wonderful guest today. But without any other further ado, I got to bring my lovely co-host to the stage, the amazing Charlene Brown. What's up, Charlene?
Hello. I'm just hoping my connection is steady today.
yes. Let's get that connection steady.
Hi,
everybody. But we have, I know you guys haven't seen us together in over a week. I think the last show we did was Tuesday, but we're back in the house. You know, some of us had to do some different things and get off, and we're trying to expand. So now we're trying to expand. I had some ideas and went some places and got some ideas, and I'm bringing them back just so we can have a more real talk, so we can get you guys in the flow and continue to bring you the real conversation about the real things that you truly care about. And we got an impressive guest today, and I don't use those terms too lightly. I always say amazing and wonderful because I say that about everybody. But impressive, you got to be really doing something for me to give you those accolades. And I'm going to bring her to the stage, and we're going to learn more about her, what she's doing, her passion, her journey, and ultimately just her purpose for what she's bringing to the table. So without any further ado, we're going to bring Miss Marie to the stage. Hello, Marie. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Good to see you, Carl. Hey, Charlene.
That is all you're going to get out of Charlene in the morning time for the South. She's just going to give you that hey, and you just got to keep.
It is early.
You got to keep on. You got to keep on moving. I think I'm the
almost
only
like Good Morning America for
LinkedIn. I'm the only early bird in the bunch, so it's. I think that it's a good thing to get up early and sing with the birds in the morning. Sing with the birds. How that sound?
I'm gonna leave that to the birds.
Yeah.
I am not a morning person. 10 o'clock is the earliest I'm trying to talk to anyone outside my house. So y'all got real lucky with this one.
We appreciate. We appreciate the real, because this is real talk.
If we were a 9 a.m. show, you would have been like, I'll catch y'all
on
replay.
Not available. Not available.
Oh, man. Like, put me on hashtag replay. I feel you on that one. I feel you on that one. So Marie, tell us a little bit about you. I get, we're talking about the inclusive leadership through your personal journey. And I know a lot of times when people are put in the leadership positions and given those kind of titles, I call them titles now because I'm not finding out of leaders. I find that people have been at places long periods of time and they just been given that, but I don't see the leader, and I definitely don't see the inclusive leadership. Give us a little bit about how that dynamic works with you and what you bring to the table with that. And also let us know a little bit about you as well.
Yeah, sure. So, well, first off, I'll just say I 100% agree with you. Titles don't make you a leader. You don't need a big title to lead, right? So I think that's the first distinction. I think sometimes, especially in workspaces, we're looking for people with the title, waiting for them to give us the instructions on what to do, to have the authority. But just because you don't have the title doesn't mean you're not a leader. And just because you have the title does not mean that you know how to lead. But for me, and I think especially now, in this current climate, the last couple of years, everyone's jumping on the inclusivity bandwagon, right? And so when I talk to folks and they're like, yeah, we're really interested in inclusive leadership, I ask them, well, what does that mean to you? Because real talk, that's just two words that we could put together. But most often people aren't really thinking about what that means and what that looks like. My experience in leadership, I really started my career when I was an itty bitty something. I thought I was going to be a ballet dancer. And that was what I wanted to do. I was in all the dance classes, right? Your ballet, tap, jazz, doing all the things. Thought that was going to be my life's purpose, my path. And I ended up having back surgery, major back surgery at the age of 13. And so that no longer became a viable option to me. So what I ended up doing was hitting the books, looking at other things I was passionate about, and ended up in New York. At the time I was living in California, came across the country to go to school in New York. I went to NYU, got a bachelor's in English creative writing, and then decided I was going to change the world. I was all about that nonprofit life. Now, the thing about the nonprofit sector is most people think nonprofit means no money, no resources. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Just because your entity is structured differently with the IRS does not mean you should be starving and have no resources. And so I very quickly learned that while there's so many people who want to save the world, there is something to be said for being abundantly resourced and how we go about that. And so that really shifted my trajectory to start looking at management, starting looking at financial literacy. I am a licensed financial advisor, take a client here and there, though that's not my main drag. By the time I was 25, I had 2 real estate investment properties out in Philadelphia. I then landed a job as the director of training and learning and development for Success Academy charter schools here on the East Coast. And in that role, that's where I really started leaning into some of the skills I'd acquired across my career when it comes to effective leadership and effective management. And I was spending about 4 years, I was about 4 years in, and I think probably the most challenging role I'd had in my career was building out a team, was writing management curriculum, teaching people what it looked like to lead, coming up with core competency rubrics so that we're speaking the same language when we say what good management looks like, so there's no confusion, so people know why and when they have the potential to be promoted based against those metrics, right? So doing a lot of that type of work. And there came a point where I had completely just outgrown the department. So I said, you know, what else do you have for me? What else could I do? And so I ended up transferring departments, had a brand new manager. And after 4 years of growing a department, building a team, training over 3,000 leaders, this new manager comes to me and says, you know, I don't even know what you do here.
Wow.
Right. So for all those who ever felt that maybe people don't recognize your swagger, maybe people don't see what you're up to, maybe people don't appreciate your value, this was literally a point in my career where someone said it to my face that she did not see me. Not only was I not valued, but literally to this woman, I was invisible. And it was around that time that I decided, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna be at this job much longer. I think I need to start laying some groundwork for my next move. And what ended up happening, I spent about a year side hustling as a consultant, as a communications coach, teaching public speaking, and then transitioned into full-on leadership coaching and started my practice about 5 years ago full time. And so when I think about inclusive leadership, it's leadership that is leading from a place of empathy, from collaboration, a place where you're willing to acknowledge and fully see people in the fullness of their identity, their gifts, and their values. And it's one where you're willing to say the hard things in order for the conversation to progress. And so that's a lot of what I do now in my practice. We focus on inclusive leadership. What does it look like to create work and workspaces that actually nurture people in the fullness of their identity?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And you put on the table so many things that so many are going. And I have to say, wow, I mean, it just never amazes. It never ceases to amaze me. The dynamic with people that you work with. I mean, it's just like with all of the accomplishments that you made, and it's not like you were walking around with a banner on like that, but they're so substantial in what you said and what you brought to their corporate table. And for someone to come in with the ignorance of not even finding out what you do, that's some kind of like I just it just adds to just wow. That's what I said that with it because I'm like, okay, I've just heard your accolades, and I mean, coming into leadership, I think our primary responsibility is to find out those that we're about to lead, find out what they bring, what they offer, what's their purpose, what's their duties.
Right.
I mean, this is just rudimentary. as far as
Right.
taking over maybe a department or leadership. And for her to come in with that question, that was kind of asinine to me, but it is amazing.
Yeah.
It is
Well,
amazing to that.
it's to that point, as a leader, your first job, your first instinct should be curiosity. You should be asking a
Yes.
lot of questions. You should be curious about the people who are coming to work for you. What are they interested in? What are their passions? What are their gifts? To not ask that question, you're just not on your job. You're not on your
Yeah.
job.
No,
So,
just not.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, no, you're just not. I can't look at it. It's no
And
other way to
and
say that.
Marie, we've known each other for
Go ahead, Charlie. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Charlene.
oh no, 'cause I think my connection's off, so please pardon me. But I'm just saying that Marie, we've known each other for quite some time, even to the point where we've worked together. You've been an amazing coach. And what I wanted to say is when you have people digging deep into their own personal desires, so they can actually focus on what is the journey they want to pursue and allow that to make them a better leader. How do you see
Mhm.
that actually being something that higher ups, especially corporate, because a lot of times I see it a lot where personal or small solopreneurs, we're the ones who really kind of dig deeper. I don't know, maybe because
Mhm.
we have the time to do it, but we dig deeper. It feels like we dig deeper to figure out
Yeah.
what is our personal desire so we can be better in our businesses. How can corporate America do that as well, especially when it comes to having leaders who are actually asking questions like they care about their
Yep.
employees?
Yeah, I love that question, Charlene. And it's interesting because when I think about folks who are in, the corporate machine, people who are employees, and I say that because you could work for someone and not have an employee mindset, right? But when I'm talking to people who are not necessarily entrepreneurial, they're often waiting for others to tell them what their purpose is. And so oftentimes leaders, especially those who have climbed the ladder with a particular organization, which is oftentimes how you get to those C-suite positions, right? You've paid your dues, as they say. And so you've stayed with one organization for a certain period of time to do that climbing. What tends to happen is you're susceptible to stop actually thinking for yourself. And now you're actually thinking with the lens of, I am the brand, I am this organization, which is not true, right? But you are put in a position where you're representing that brand so often that you actually forget what your individual purpose is. And so one of the things that I ask executives when I'm coaching executives around inclusive leadership, I ask them, and anything that they bring to the table, because of course in coaching, the client could bring anything on any given day. But I always ask them, how does this impact who you want to be and how you want to show up as an inclusive leader? Right. And that could be from anything, right? That could be, oh, I need to look at offboarding someone. We're going to replace someone on the team, right? And how they choose to go about that. That could be, we have a new initiative and I want to make sure that people are following it across the board, right? But really asking them to think about, how are you going to go about this so that you are showing up with integrity in your personal brand? And that is a question most people are not thinking about. They're thinking about, how is it going to look for the company? What's going to be good for the organization? But if you were to really ask yourself, if this decision were going to go on record and everyone in your life was going to know that this is how you did it, would you still go about it the same way? And it really gets people to start thinking, you know what, let me think, is this how I want to show up? Am I acting with the highest of integrity? Am I demonstrating that I care about people, or am I demonstrating that I only care about the bottom line? How are my priorities showing up in this decision? And it is different when you work for someone else, because oftentimes you are more invested in their vision and mission than you are in your own personal mission and vision. And that's why I think as entrepreneurs, as solopreneurs, we're doing that work all of the time. We recognize when you first start a business, you are the brand, you are everything. You decide and dictate the mission and vision. And oftentimes it's very much tied to your personal values. So it feels very personal when things are out of alignment, which is not always the case when you're in that employee mindset.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think about it as well, with you giving all that you've given to that corporation. I can kind of see that in the twofold because I've been in corporations where I've kind of put my brand into that corporation, regardless of whatever mission statement or vision statement that they had on the wall, just due to the fact that I wanted my environment to be conducive to how I want to work. So a lot of people, I think, when I think about the question to answer this, when people come up out of that and they slide down or slide up, whichever way you want to put it, into their own, for the entrepreneur and the spirit in them, they're bringing a lot of what they already brought to the company, which the company ignored, and
Right.
which and it's such as what the your boss did with you upon that. How do you get around that and not bring that and not lose that fire and fervor when you're building your own? Because we can't be in the point of the continuum cage of just
Hmm.
working to try
Hmm.
to get this up, and we take that employee mindset with the entrepreneur ideas that we placed into our corporate. How do we kind of like balance that to a level where I can continue to bring that in and brand that my brand into this new entrepreneurship that I'm starting, but also how can I keep myself from just being an employee for me, being my
Right.
own personal employee?
Right. So I love this question. And I know Charlene and I have talked about this too. What's the point of starting a business only to find out that you're the worst boss you ever had? Right. And
Yeah.
that's what happens for a lot of folks, right? We've
Yeah.
been in the corporate machine. We were frustrated. We were tired. We were burnt out. And we said, I'm going to go do this by myself. I can do better by myself. But we don't have any other frameworks or any other way of doing work. So what do? We go out and we try to recreate the very prison we just left. And now we
Yeah.
burnt out, right? Talking about, oh, I have my own business. I worked 150 hours this week. Girl, bye. That is not a badge
Yeah.
of honor, right? If you were going to work 150 hours a week, you could have just got a job. Like,
Yeah.
why are you doing the same thing that you said that you didn't want, right?
Mhm.
So there is a switch that I think you have to flip on that. Not to say that, and I know we touched on a little bit this idea of entrepreneur mindset, but you can have an employee mindset and be working for yourself, right? And you can have an entrepreneur mindset and be working for somebody else, right? So I think there's something nuanced in there around working for yourself, having an entrepreneur mindset, right? And then choosing to create structures that are different than the prison you just escaped from.
Yeah,
I got
and because we also talked about what is a unbiased behavior looking like? How does that really affect you? And with that on the plate, I'm going to throw that there. How do you really take those awarenesses of your unbiased behavior and make yourself more aware of how you can be inclusive as a leader, especially if you're not owning the business. You don't own
Right.
it, but you want to make people see and hear you, but you also want to make space for others. How can that really happen while you are addressing, or if you're even trying to, but have unbiased behaviors in effect?
Yeah. So, well, I think the first thing when we talk about being more inclusive in leadership, and this is something I ask for every group of every team I sit in front of, every workshop I conduct, I ask people, raise your hand if you can see your blind spots. Now, of course, this is a trick question because if you raise your hand, I know you don't have a great deal of self-awareness, right? But if you could see your blind spots, we wouldn't call them blind spots. And for many of us, when we're talking about bias, that's where they sit. We can't see them, which means we have to rely on others to point those out to us, which means we have to be receptive to receiving feedback, right? And actually listening to where our opportunities for growth are, right? All of us have patterns of behavior, ways of thinking. They are literal pathways burned into our brains, right? That is how humans work. We love a good pattern. We like to be able to predict things. And that does not always serve us when we're trying to be innovative in the business space, right? When we're trying to, be creative, that old patterns aren't going to serve new ideas, right? So that means we need other people. We have to rely on team. We have to rely on a degree of trust, relationships, psychological safety, for someone to say like, hey, have you ever thought about it this way? Here's what I see. And you're not going to get that unless you're inviting that in. Most often, the higher up you are on the org chart, the less likely it is that you're receiving honest feedback. People don't tell the boss the truth. They don't, because they're worried, right, that there's going to be blowback. So people don't tell the boss the truth. Boss will be walking around with spinach in their teeth all day. Don't nobody say nothing, right? But at the end of the day, that's not helping the boss, right? And that's not helping you as a player on that team. So when we talk about starting to recognize bias, you have to invite the feedback in. You have to be really active about asking people, what am I not seeing? And then being really authentic about wanting to know the answers to those questions and then wanting to do something about it. Don't ask for people's advice, their feedback, and then not take any action, because now you're teaching them and telling them that you ain't about change.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, you have to invite those dialogues and conversations. And most often, the more authority you have in your position or your role, the less likely it is that you're getting that honest, real-time feedback. No one's giving the real talk to the CEO.
Okay, because some CEOs don't want to hear it. They want to always sit on a pedestal. They always want to be given flowers when they deserve dead roses, but they want that love when they can't take the heat.
Well, it's interesting because yes, okay, you might have CEOs like that, but you also have CEOs who are dying for the feedback, right? But they're not asking for it. They're dying for the feedback. They're assuming, like they'll say, I have an open door policy, but when no one shows up, they don't go and look for the feedback. They're like, oh, well, no one came, so it must be all right. No, no one came, right? Because they think you way up there. They think they don't have access. The door is open, but they feel some kind of way about walking in the room. So as a leader, you have to be willing, as you said, you got to humble yourself. Like, hey, no, I really want to know. And that requires a degree of relationship, trust, vulnerability. That's another thing. Leaders are scared stiff that they're going to get it wrong and embarrass themselves, embarrass the company. They don't want to mess up. They don't want to mess up. But if you're living in a world of perfection, then you never actually get to progress. So you got to let that go.
Yeah,
very true. So with that, what is in your perspective, from your opinion, what do you feel or why do you feel inclusion is key for leadership?
Yeah, well, it's the only way that companies are going to progress, right? I laugh because in these last 2 years now, right? Global pandemic, world shut down, everyone quarantined, people had to work from home who previously said work from home was impossible, right?
Oh, yeah.
Figured it out. People learned how to work a Zoom. Okay. Right. Talk about going from fixed mindset to growth mindset. When given the problem, we had to figure it out. And business has adapted and changed. And yet here we are coming up on a second wave, new variant almost every other day, right? And people are itching to go back to the way that it was, right? Yeah. And what I tell people all the time, you can't get nothing new if you keep doing what you've always done, right? And sometimes it takes a crisis to force us into being adaptable, to force us into experimenting, but that is what's necessary for evolution. So when we're talking about inclusion, it's all about actively seeking out the diversity of voices, the diversity of experiences, the ideas that you haven't thought of. Because remember, you can't see your blind spots. Right. You need someone who sees things differently, who has different experiences, who can point things out to you that you never would have seen on your own. And that is the future of business. That is what innovation is born from.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, because even now, like you said, people are dying to go back to the way it was, which, you know, whenever life changes, it's for a reason. And that's how I believe things are happening for a reason, because the way we were going, people were being burnt out but weren't saying anything. And I think the last year and a half, people were actually given that voice, given that opportunity to be comfortable enough to say and to be vulnerable enough as well to say, I'm burnt out. I can't do this. I can't keep this up. And to now almost have their voices be hushed again and be told this is the only way.
Right.
and it's almost like it's a disingenuous leader saying, oh, I was here for you last year. Now we're back to the way I want it, the way I feel comfortable.
Right.
And then to use last year as a measuring stick of what failed is not even fair, because a lot of people, when they started doing the new thing, and we know it takes time for something different to take effect. But you can't say, here's a few months, we kept getting it wrong, and let's not try to work on it. Let's just go back to what we used to do. So even in leadership, when you're trying to be inclusive, it's always about listening and trying not to hush the voices that are now finding their way and their leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like anything else. It's, evolve or die. If you don't change, if you don't adapt, you will become obsolete. You will become obsolete. They're calling this year the year of the Great Resignation, right?
Yes.
Because people have woken up to the fact they don't want to go back to the way that it was. People are looking for something different in how they live their lives and how they choose to work, in the projects they want to work on, in the industries that they want to be in. So if you're not ready to evolve, right, with the workforce, right, you will be obsolete. There are too many people letting people work remotely 100% of the time for you to say we're only going to allow people to come into the office 100% of the time. You got to evolve. You got to evolve because people have options. And if you're not working for them, if you're not creating spaces where they feel seen, heard, most effective, you're going to lose out on the best talent. It's the only option at this point.
And I think I definitely love that because people are, and the funny thing about it, excuse me, if it can be even deemed as funny, everyone now has taken from the pandemic, and I've been preaching this for a long time. That was the reset. And not only was that the reset for business, personal, that was a reset for the world. So when I look at that, especially on the spiritual level, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity where everybody got a whiteboard. So all of those mistakes and all of those caveats that you carried on from pre-pandemic to now, you have an opportunity to clean the slate with all and encompass all, so we can move forward together. And what I'm saying is, I was talking to Charlene earlier. I just got back from a conference in Dallas, and what everybody was so intent on is how do I change from how I was. All the business entrepreneurs and the CEOs and those that I sat with, these high heavy hitters, and they're stuck because they've been doing it so traditionally wrong for so long. They don't know. So what do we do now when we come against those ones that want to continue this? I know you said that they either evolve or die, but what are some of the top tips that you can give for the people that are in these situations now when they're running into the walls of trying to help leadership change?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really interesting in kind of this space and the way business is moving now is people more and more are adapting to this idea of becoming a coaching organization, which means you're leading with curiosity, you're asking the questions that need to be asked, and we're living outside of this context of right versus wrong, right? Assuming, right, if we just take judgment out of our decision making and say, like, what if there was no right way to do it? Right? Then the only thing you have to do is experiment and see what works. It's not about right versus wrong. It's works, doesn't work. Serves our purpose, doesn't serve our purpose. Serves our people, doesn't serve our people. Right? And so if we just change the questions we're asking ourselves, right, the answers will change. Right? The way that we move will change. The way that we run organizations will change. But oftentimes we're just not asking the right questions. And coaching is a space where you're forced to ask the questions and find the answers that no one has asked and answered before. So that's the first thing I'll say is start looking at changing the questions that you're asking yourselves. The other thing I'll say is you got to lean into collaboration, lean all the way into collaboration. And when I say collaboration, I don't mean we're going to hire a diversity recruiter and get some color in here on the bottom tier. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. Because I think too often leaders assume that the conversation they're in is novel, that they're the first one to think about doing something, right? We're all interested in reinventing the wheel and taking credit for something brand new, especially when we're talking about equity and inclusion, these conversations have been happening for centuries. People in their communities have been having these conversations, have been proposing ideas, new ways of doing things, systems, programs for centuries. You don't need to reinvent anything. And you shouldn't be sitting there waiting for them to come to you. You need to go and seek those conversations out and ask if you can be a part of their conversation instead of asking people to come join your brand new conversation because you newly woke and so excited, right? So when we talk about collaboration, don't be sitting at your table. I'm ready. Come. I'm ready. No, you need to get up out your chair and go into the communities that have been having these conversations for decades and centuries and ask, I'm here. How can I help? How can I serve you? what can we create that is brand new together, right? So that's the second thing I'll say. So one, ask some different questions. Two, stop waiting for people to join your conversation and go and find out what people are already saying and talking about.
Yeah,
I like that
that's real
because
talk.
when we talked, Carl and I talked also yesterday about unbiases, and
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing up something that we tapped in a little bit about. Are you creating your own table? Are you building your own table because other people won't let you in, or are you joining a table to improve it? Like what are the different stages? And as you're saying, don't always feel like you need to start a new conversation and then you're expecting others to join yours. Why aren't you listening out for other people and seeing what is already being spoken about and then
Right.
jumping in to see where can you fit in to
Right.
improve those conversations and make the shift there. And I
Right.
think sometimes we ignore those opportunities to be leaders, inclusive leaders in those
Right.
realms as well.
Absolutely. So much of leadership, when I talk about inclusive leadership, I talk about advocacy, right?
Right.
Advocacy means you're not leading from the front, you're not pulling someone along. Advocacy means we're shoulder to shoulder. In fact, if you're my advocate, you're like one step behind me, right?
Mm.
And when I need you, I can say, like, hey, could you push me this way? Hey, could you open that door? That is the definition of advocacy. Oftentimes, as leaders, though, right, people come into this idea of I'm going to be an inclusive leader and they're ready to lead from the front.
Yes.
Right? They want to be in the front. You got to let that go. You got to let that go. If you
Yeah,
want to
and it
lead
does.
with me, right? If you want to collaborate, you're going to be over here on my shoulder.
We're going to be equal partners in this, and we talk about this a lot. And it definitely, I'm a law student now in the legal field, and that's what my career is headed toward. And I think about the change in dynamic and the pivot that I had to make. But now I'm in the industry as well, and I'm going to be taking this vulnerability mindset to this industry. And what it is, what I'm realizing, and I'm on these internships with judges and attorneys in this white wall of just the old stogie, old boys club of law and how it's done. And I bring this perspective, and all the time I'm hearing from all of these judges, hey, we want to join the conversation. What can we do? And I hear the conversations, and I hear them saying they want to join the conversations, and I hear them saying they want to be a part of the conversation. But you said something that was so key that caught my attention. You say a lot of times they're sitting back at their tables, at their comfort zones, in their arenas, want you to come to join them. And I
Mm-hmm.
say that a lot because I'm kind of like vocal with a lot of things, especially if it's my heart to say I don't have a problem with saying it to anyone and I don't care about your rank or stature. I just say it to you in a respectful manner, of course, because some of these judges you could talk, you'd be locked up. But but I say it to a point of them where I'm not aggressive, I'm not the angry black man. But what I bring and ask of them, and what I will ask of you in the essence of changing the dynamic of that, how do we get them? Or is it our responsibility? Should I say? I'll rephrase that. Is it our responsibility? Because we've been continuously having these conversations, those that are on the outside. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, we've been having these conversations for decades. How can we get them to encourage them? They're asking now with the George Floyd deaths and these high profile things that have been happening to people of color for years. They're asking now. I got white friends asking me, never really spoke to me before, like, oh man, I'm sorry, what can I do? And like how
Mm.
do we really give them a fulfilling answer? Because I have so many things come to my mind, and I have to really separate myself from, okay, I'm the black kid who the police harass and turn my pockets inside out, and I want to give them this angry answer. To I want to give them something constructive so I can bring to the table so it will benefit us as a whole. How do I
Yeah.
go about bringing those kind of questions, bringing those kind of people to my place?
Yeah. So I love this question, Carl. And there's just so much in just what you just shared.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes my little mind just be.
We're gonna rewind the tape a little bit. But the first thing that caught my attention was you said you don't want to be the angry black man.
Yes.
And I'm here to say you don't need to police yourself or your emotions. Because sometimes, especially as people of color, especially as women, especially as members of the queer community, if you are marginalized, you have reason to be angry.
Yes.
Right? So don't let other people tell you your emotions are not justified. Okay. So if you won't be angry and then tell them why you're mad. Right. And I think sometimes for fear of falling into a stereotype, for fear of falling into a trope, we don't actually express where we're actually at. Now that doesn't mean, right, to let your emotions fly, but you do need to have some sense of emotional control, which means there's an awareness happening around, hey, I'm angry right now. let me look at what's behind that, and then get to a place where I can articulate that without getting triggered and escalating a situation, as opposed to creating a collaboration, right? So that's the first thing I say. And regardless of how you come across, how you say things, there's still gonna be people who think you're still the angry Black man. So no sense in you trying to police yourself. They're gonna think what they wanna think, no matter what you do. But on this piece of, and I love you said you had white friends who had never spoken to you, who had never called.
Yeah, we worked together. We've been working together off and on in different. We worked for the same judge, and off and on we was doing different clerkships. About 3.5 years now.
Okay.
And I get it. I mean, he's not ignorant to the fact that he doesn't speak, but I mean, conversational wise, and just recently, maybe over since the past summer or so, he's really been, as I see it, coming out of his way to make sure he engaged me in sort of kind of like, I got a Black friend kind of thing. This is what I look at. And then I looked at it and I say, well, maybe I'm being judgmental because of the simple fact he never said nothing before past good morning.
Right.
So I'm kind of like twixt and twain there. And I'm like, I don't want to go at him, but he's coming to me and he seems genuine because I don't know him no other way. So he seemed genuine. He's like, man, it's like I really took some inventory in a lot of things, and I don't really like how. So it sounds genuine to the way he come off, but I've seen some of the arrogance and how he's carried himself when he didn't think nobody was watching.
Right.
And so that kind of like triggers me. Like, man, you ain't really trying to. I go back into my neighborhood. And you ain't really trying to figure out what's going on with us. But I don't want to behave that way because he is someone that's coming, and from what I see, he's trying to make a change. So how do I go about that? Because that is going to be a legacy of mine, because I'm working with this judge and we know we're in the same circle. So I wanted to be that, that guy is not the angry Black man, but he was able to articulate how he really felt and move us toward a solution.
Right. Yeah. And I totally hear that, like wanting to befriend someone who's trying to be an ally. Right.
Yeah.
And so wanting to be the person who can kind of bridge that gap. At the same time, I gotta say, a lot of folks get into a space when they say, yeah, I'm an ally, I'm going to be anti-racist, right? That was the rallying cry of last year. I'm going to be anti-racist. And I always ask them, if no one was going to hear about, know about, or see the work that you did, would you still do it? Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes in this space, there's one of two things happening. One, because of the current climate, especially if we're talking just about racial diversity. But in this climate, white folks have been convicted, right? White folks are having an experience of recognizing their ignorance in this conversation and are responding with shame and guilt. And shame and guilt are trauma responses, right? Yeah. Shame and guilt is something we do to protect ourselves because we feel there's a threat to our own well-being, whether perceived or actual, right? And so when someone approaches and they're coming from a place of shame and guilt, right? So from a trauma place, the first thing I'll say is it is not your responsibility to do someone else's healing work, right? It is not your responsibility to assuage them of their guilt, to soothe their shame. That is not your responsibility. And that's, across the spectrum. I've seen this a lot for especially Black folks in the last year, but I think it speaks and rings true when we're talking about the LGBTQ community, when we're talking about gender, when we're talking about faith. People feel bad about themselves, and then they come to you to say, what can I do so I can feel better? That is not your job, right? Not your job. You are not responsible for someone else's feelings. And I'm not saying not to have empathy, but if they are having a trauma response, you cannot heal them. They can only heal themselves. So sometimes what's required here is to ask them a question that allow them to look inward and find their own answer, right? Because we can't live in a world where white folks are going to say, I'm inclusive because my Black friend told me so.
That is definitely not the answer.
That's not the answer. And I've had multiple conversations with people, especially organizations who are looking at, how do we become an anti-racist organization? What do we need to do? Can you review our marketing and tell us if it's off? And I'm like, you know what? I could play puppet master and pull the strings, but that would not make you any more inclusive. Right? What is that actually going to do? Right? That's the definition of performance, right? So if you want to do the work, if you want to be better, so you're not getting triggered when you realize that you've missed a whole 300 years worth of Black history. What do you want to do about that? What do you want to do about that? Because Black people are tired. Women are tired. Queer folks are tired. And we have reason to be. So you brand new hopping in the conversation about, I'm ready to work now. Tell me what to do. It is not my job to manage you and your emotions. You need to handle yourself. What do you think you should do?
I would drop my mic, but I need it for another show.
Because before you even dig deeper into that, I want us to be able to support you as well in the work that you're doing. So please share with our communities and yours, because even though we're connected to each other, a lot of times we still don't know of all the great things that we're doing. So please let us know, where can we support you? Where can we connect with you? And if you have anything that you are popping off and you want us to jump in on it, let us know that too.
Yeah. So absolutely. I mean, the best way for people to find out more about me and my work is by going to the website, mariedeveaux.com. I'm also very active here on LinkedIn. So feel free to follow me here or on my business page on LinkedIn, which is High Tides Consulting. In the works this year, we've spent a lot of time writing new content, especially for teams and folks who are committed to becoming more inclusive in their organizations. So if that's you, if that's where your organization is, feel free to reach out. There is an inquiry form on our website where you can fill out a brief questionnaire about what you're trying to create in your company culture, and we can set up a conversation.
Love that. Yes, I love that as well. I was looking at your website and I get some ideas off your website. So I'll be talking to my website architect that's there, my partner there.
Yes.
I got some ideas off of that. I was like, whoa, I need this in my life right now.
Always.
Well, that's the beauty of a website. It's ever evolving, right?
Yes,
it's never done.
Yes.
Say
it
again, Marie. Say it again, Marie. I don't think you heard
It's
that.
never done. No. A website is always evolving.
No, I have my website architect here,
but
you know, when I come up with ideas, you know, and Charlene was like, it's just that monotoneness that she gives me when I said I got ideas. She's like, what, Carl? I said, you know, so like,
here we go.
You used to go talk to your mom about stuff, and your mom be like, you be excited, and you be like, yo, I got this, and she be like, what? And then, you know, I'll just be like, I don't even want to say it now.
No, because just briefly with Carl, and it's with a lot of my clients, they get super, super excited. So and sometimes they'll catch me in friend mode. So I have to take that friend hat off, put my architect hat on and say, okay, let's pause for a second. I see the excitement in your eyes, but after today, once this launches, then what? And then that's where the whole real reality kicks in, and they're like, oh, I'm like, okay, so go map that out and then come back to me.
Right.
Map that out and then we'll talk.
Right. What you trying to do?
I must say she's my we the yin to the yang, however that goes across. I just know you need both of them to make it full, right? So this is what we do. Yeah. This is just listening to reading the things and how you so eloquently put it. We have a lot of articulate people that's on our shows, and this is no knock on anyone, but you've really articulated well a lot of things that are really issues and cores, and you got down to the bottom of that. And a lot of people have been feeling that, and I can't say to a certain extent I have as well, thinking that the help is there. We've understand because we've had the conversations. We know what inclusive is because I don't know too many, like they say we don't ever work together or we're like crabs in a basket. And I'm just saying minorities in general. This is the take, and this is like the nomenclature that's out concerning us. But I do know that the ones that I've worked with and the ones that I've been around, we're real and inclusive in our ways. We are. And I have not seen that from the other structures of working. So when they come to us, they bring themselves to us at these points, a lot of time, it can be deceiving because we feel and we take on the responsibility of the nurturing that we are. Okay, let's see what they're talking about. Let's kind of bring them in to kind of get them. But I'm glad you brought that to the forefront, that it's not our responsibility, because a lot of times they come to us seeking an answer. And a lot of it is from trauma, because, you know, the first thing he said to me in the essence of that, he's like, oh man, I didn't know you guys like went through stuff like that. And and I'm like, okay, I've heard this before, and I hear this before. You hear a lot of them saying it now, coming forward. Oh man, I didn't know this happened to you, or I don't know how you feel because I don't have to have these speeches with my son when he goes out, and those kind of things. I've been hearing it for about the past year now. But the thing that has gotten away from me, is the actual in-depthness of someone coming to me with solutions instead of
Yeah.
asking me questions.
Yeah.
And that is what you just enlightened me on personally. That there is trauma responses because they're coming to me for aid to continue what they're doing. They're not coming to me for the solution to figure out where they can help me. And
Yeah.
I have to applaud you for that because you're just opening up. You've awakened that in me to understand that more deeply. So I'm off my
Yeah.
soapbox now, Charlie. Go ahead.
Because as Carl brings that up, I also wanted to ask you, like, how can we avoid, because I saw it a lot in 2020, and to the point I started distancing myself from a lot of conversations,
Yep.
only because I'm already an introvert, and when I turn up, I can turn all the way up, and people
Oh,
just not going to talk
Jesus.
to me anymore.
Lord, mercy, Lord, mercy.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
Carl,
okay.
that's
You
from
had to,
experience, Carl.
I
That
had to
reaction.
put on mute, put the mute on.
That's okay. But I want to ask, like, how can we as individuals, as cultures, as businesses avoid the I want to say trauma dump or emotional
Mm.
dump? Because sometimes as we are trying to sift through our issues and find solutions, we end up almost dumping our emotions on someone else and then expecting them to pick up the pieces. So how can we avoid that and really do true um, that true work towards inclusion and
Yeah.
being leaders in that?
Yeah. Well, the easy answer is go to therapy, right? Go pay someone to dump your emotions on and to sort through that stuff with. And I'm half joking, but so serious, right?
Mhm.
There are professionals who are trained to do just that kind of work with you. The other thing I'll say is before you unload on someone, ask for consent. Like, like everyone has their stuff. To your point, everyone has issues. Everyone is up to their own healing. Whatever community you're in, we're trying to do our own work. So I may not be in a space or even be interested, right, engaging with whatever you got going on over there. So before you go and unload on someone, ask for consent. Like, hey, I have some things going on. I need a place to emotionally unload. Are you all right with that? And let it be okay for people to be like, nah, I can't. I don't have space for that right now. Like, give people the option, and then don't be offended when people, put their hand up and say, like, I'm going to pause you right there. I don't have capacity for this right now. I wish you the best, but I don't think I'm the right person you should be talking to. Right? Like, set some boundaries. We have to, again, like, you can't be responsible for someone's own healing, but you need to be responsible for your own well-being. And if you are not mentally, emotionally in the space to take on someone's stuff, let that be known. Hey, sounds like you're going through a lot. I'm not in a space right now to take that in. But here, if you have references, here are some folks I could suggest. I have a list of therapeutic professionals I send out to people at the drop of a hat. It's like, hey, sounds like this could be of service to you. Let me know. Because sometimes we're all full.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has work to do. Everyone has healing that they're up to. So don't get into a space where you're assuming that someone has space for your emotional dumping.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'll say about that. Therapy is a beautiful space for that. Coaching to some extent can be therapeutic. So go seek out people and pay them for their time to do that work, because it is work. It is work. And let's not assume that anyone owes us anything to do our work for us.
Hey, that's good stuff.
All
Marie,
right.
what is something that people should know about you that you haven't shared with us today? It
Hmm.
just you, whether it could be personal business, or what is something that or it may be rephrasing the question, what is something that really drives Marie? What is something that drives Marie?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have two kids. I know that's like the easy answer. Like, I have a family. And definitely trying to be a good role model for them in terms of how they show up in the world. So I think that's probably my primary driver. Going into this school year, we decided we would take a crack at homeschooling for the first time. So I have a lot of motivation to be a good role model, to set an example for them, and to show up how I would want in the world, so that they know what that looks like. Right. So that's what I'll share on that.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. They're the number ones. Family is the number one, and a lot of times we get passionate about other things. But I know if you just talk about Bible talk, if you're not taking care of the home first, all the other things that you try to delve into or try to mastermind is really
Mm-hmm.
null and void, because someone's
Mm-hmm.
at home is suffering from what they need you to bring
Right.
to the table. That's great stuff. That's great stuff. I enjoyed this conversation today. What you got, Charlene?
I loved it, but I always love talking to Marie. We need to do more of that.
Yes, we're gonna do more talking to Marie. Yeah, because I think she needs to
Yes.
know the side of you she don't know about. You know what I mean?
But see, Carl knows me. I'm always saying we're bringing you back on
Okay.
because inclusivity is such a topic that people almost are using like not even like a badge of honor, but they're using it also as this is our word of the day, or this is our word of the
Right.
year. So what are we going to use for 2022? So I rather, instead of this being the word of the year or whatever that may be, I want it to be part of what we do, just as breathing. Just you're not thinking about
Right.
it. It should just be part of what you do. So yes, I would love to have you back
Oh
on
my
so we can
goodness.
have another discussion about this. Yes, 10 a.m.
we got like we got
Right,
we
like the
got we got
time
about
slot
a
gonna be
million.
different.
We got a million part
But we
twos.
but we also
Yeah.
do we are also pulling together panels, and those are going to be at
Yes.
different times most likely, but we're still working out those logistics. So please know that you will be getting emails.
Okay.
Yes.
I
But
love me a
also
good panel. I love a good panel
see,
for it.
Yes.
but
Yes. And we
also what
also
oh, go ahead, Carl.
no, I was gonna say I just was chiming in right quick before you said that, and also we doing the clubhouse route because
Mm,
we're working on that as well, because I think we need to open up. We've been doing this on this forum, and we've been talking about that. We haven't even touched my specialty, the vulnerability part in
mm-hmm,
this
mm-hmm.
inclusive leadership, because I do think that
Ah,
equation is definitely a dynamic that a lot of
a
leaders are
huge piece of
missing.
it. Yep.
A huge piece of it, and that's pretty much what I come from. My perspective was the glue, but I want us to have these kind of conversations with call to actions in the clubhouse setting, and in those kind of things. So we got a lot of things. Like I told you, I'm the idea guy right here. We got a lot of things and a lot of perspectives that I think it's important for people to hear real. You know what I'm saying? I don't talk about it, and I hate talking about clubhouse, but I have to do it. Like it's so many dynamics that's just so confusing and totally wrong in that arena where people are not really sharing the genuine information, and we have these multi-talented, multifaceted people in there, and they're holding high school gyms as rooms, and that's really what I'm calling. Where somebody's over here playing kickball, somebody's over here playing dodgeball. It's just a lot of noise, and it's not realness where people can grab to and
Yeah.
make changes in their lives. And this is the reason that we started Real Talk. We wanted people to take what we give them, be able to apply it, and be able to move forward with the knowledge. And this is, you bring some great stuff, and we haven't even scratched the surface in a lot of that. I'm
Mhm.
normally on with the part twos, but I'm gonna lead the parade for this part two.
You see
Oh
how I get
yeah.
treated.
Yeah.
But what is the final word for this gathering that you would love to leave people with, almost like an action item? What would you like to leave the audience with so they can move on with their day and actually make um, 2021 something where they are actually making a difference for themselves or others?
Mm, mm. Okay. Well, I got two. So, so the first one I'll offer is really consider what can you do in the next 24 hours to take responsibility for your own healing.
Mm.
And that's regardless of how you identify. What is one thing you can do in the next 24 hours to take responsibility for your own healing? Um, and the second thing I'll offer is curiosity. So consider before you go and approach someone for a new conversation, like Carl said, the friendly white colleague who all of a sudden got chatty. But really consider, what is a question you could ask that you are genuinely curious to know the answer to? Don't talk to me just because I'm the Black woman in the room. Don't talk to me just because you think you're supposed to. What are you genuinely curious to know about me? And practice that. Really develop a practice of curiosity.
I love that. Yes, practicing curiosity. And then what can you do to heal yourself rather than looking for that external
Right.
support? Yes,
Right. Don't come to me
I
asking
love
for
that.
band-aids. I ain't got no band-aids for you.
I'm already using them. I got my own
Right.
battle.
I need my band-aids. Thank you. I
That's
need my
it.
band-aids.
I'm using them. I'm using them with the foolishness you put me through.
Hello.
So,
Well,
see,
we
I
all
thought
know what they really need is a nutrition plan and a personal trainer, but they coming to you asking for band-aids. So
absolutely.
you gonna do this work? Because
Oh man, this has been. I mean, this has been. All of our shows are really, really enlightening and uplifting and definitely educational. But this has been one I can't say one of my favorites already. That we've discussed a lot of things that's right up my wheelhouse, and I was excited to hear a lot of the answers coming from Marie. I didn't expect anything less, and I'm sure our audience felt the same as that. We appreciate everybody that's came by. Sheree, Martin, Kahim, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Scott, Carla, Quentin, we appreciate you guys. Definitely check us in at hashtag replay. We'll be putting this back out. But we want you to, I got Marie's website going down the bottom, mariedeveaux.com. Please go see her. Also look at everything she has to offer. That website is the bomb. I'll be talking to Charlene about some things on their website, and we should do some integration. We would not be copying. I did see the copyright at the bottom, so we won't be copying, but we will
Yes,
be doing.
yes. You
We'll be
need
doing
that.
some. We'll be doing some integration.
right, right,
I
right, right. It's all about
yeah,
integration, integration,
right. Integration,
appreciation, not
collaborate,
appropriation.
appreciate.
There you go.
Absolutely. Now
Do
we're
your own
talking.
work.
We're talking about some of the legal strategies of which I stay fortified in. So we definitely want to do that. Marie, we appreciate you. We thank you so much for getting up with us, and not necessarily up with us, but spending this early morning
Mm.
with us, because we knew this was probably against your religion to be up with someone else outside at this time of morning. But we
Bro.
definitely are great. We definitely are grateful that you taking the time and graced us with your presence this morning. And it was definitely a learning and true real talk education that we got this morning. We just learned about inclusive leadership, guys, through her own personal journey. I'm still saying wow over the supervisor who came at you like that. I like
Yeah,
really want to sit down with somebody
yeah.
like that and just see like, wow, how did you come up with that? Like what was you thinking? Like, just some people I just want to ask that. Like Trump, most people don't care about him. I would actually like to do an interview with Trump on the real.
There's a lot of curiosity. I'm like, I got so many
Yeah, I
questions.
just want to ask
Like,
things from a
fascinating
standpoint
person.
of
Like,
just to hear what he has to say. I mean,
yeah,
just
Like,
away
what's
from the
going on in
cameras.
there?
Yeah, not all the lies, not all the actually. And then I'm going to use the mic first and put it up to his head, just have him shake, because I want to know if there's some noise that goes on up there. I think it's loose screws, but that's the topic for another day.
mm-mm-mm.
Charlene, carry us out here.
I'll put
Well,
you right up to the end there, Carl.
like, okay. But thank you all, as always, for supporting Real Talk, allowing us to support you, and of course, supporting the people that we are spotlighting. Marie has been not only amazing, but she has showcased why it's important to be an inclusive leader. So if you know that you have something to share with the community, your own and ours, please hit us up, connect with us so you too can be spotlighted. We are now in November bookings. Emails will be going out. We're a little delayed, but they will be going out. I cannot wait for the topics that we are about to come up and talk about. So please stay tuned, stay connected, and we'll talk to you guys later.
All right, y'all. Deuces. We'll see y'all on next week. Later, alligator. Oh my God, I just love to have fun. I just love to have fun. I love to have fun. Mm.